This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP.
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Folks, we welcome to Make It Plain today. The president of Delaware State University, the HBCU, President Biden brags about the most. We were all at the anniversary of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial dedication. And of course, Howard was recognized because of the vice president, Howard, one of my alma maters. But President Biden made sure to remind us that while we all talk about Howard, we can't forget Del State, where he got started. So the president of Delaware State is here with us, Dr. Tony Allen. Dr. Allen, welcome to Make It Plain. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well, Rev. Good to be with you, my friend.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And in that vein, it's appropriate that you're kind of leading the HBCU initiative for the White House, aren't you?
That's correct. I got appointed in September, and it was an honor, certainly, and I'm humbled by it. But more importantly, as you know, it's an important moment for HBCUs. So our opportunity to lift our voice in a much different way and have the backing of an administration that knows HBCUs deep in their bones, I think has been very important for us and will be throughout the administration's tenure.
And you've been organizing too, when it comes to HBCU institutions. A number of them, I think about 50 at least.
65 actually is the final 65. Number.
Okay,
yeah.
That's great. So they've all written the Senate asking them to pass Build Back Better, right?
That's correct. And it wasn't a big lift, actually. Like I said, I know that my colleagues recognize the moment, and they also see the historic investments from the administration today and recognize that it is really just a down payment on the future. You can't solve any of the historic inequities we faced over the last nearly 200 years with any specific bill, but the last couple of initiatives that the administration has included, the American Rescue Plan and now Build Back Better, have had significant, in fact, historic funding provisions for HBCUs.
But now, wait a minute. There was this big thing on social media and this meme and splash that Joe Biden was actually cutting a lot of money from HBCUs. Talk to us about that confusion. We know that's no longer true. But tell us more even about what, in fact, Build Back Better would do for our HBCUs.
Yeah, so a couple of things. And to hit directly to that point, the president didn't cut anything in his particular proposals. It made its way through Congress, as you know. And while the provisions were not what were originally proposed, they are still historic in nature. When you think about the $4.7 billion from the American Rescue Plan and what is now effectively about $10 billion for HBCUs and MSIs and HSIs, that in and of itself are game changers for us. But as I said, no one particular piece of legislation is going to do the trick for nearly 200 years of inequities. What I can tell you, though, is when I wrote a Dear Colleague letter when I first got appointed to the White House initiative, and really highlighted a couple of things relative to broader priorities. One, physical infrastructure. So recognizing that we need to have living and learning spaces that can help us compete on par with our mainstream counterparts. Build Back Better does that. Two, the comprehensive research nature of our institutions. Now, you know that many HBCUs have significant research capacity, and a lot of the research we do are consistent with what you see many of our mainstream peers doing relative to disproportionate realities. We actually think we have special expertise there. That is in Build Back Better as well. And then the final piece was more financial support for low resource students. And this one, Rev, I think is a particularly important one because as you may have seen through the United Negro College Fund's latest report, it says that HBCUs more than any other higher education institution in America are chiefly responsible for putting folks from low resource communities, particularly African-American folks, into the middle class. That's kind of social and economic mobility cannot be overstated. So making sure that they have the resources to get through our schools and walk across that stage. And as Delaware State says, enter to learn and go forth to serve has been absolutely critical And that too is in the Build Back Better legislation. So again, I see it as a down payment on a long-term promise, and I expect ongoing commitment from the administration.
More MIP after this message. And when you have more African Americans entering the middle class, then that's even a greater contribution to society as a whole. And not to sound too bureaucratic or technocratic, but I mean, that helps build a tax base too.
No question about it. No question about it. Remember, and I know you know this, but just for your listeners, we are only 3% of all college and universities in the country, only 3%. We're only getting 1% of the federal funding that should be allocated to us, but we're still producing nearly 20% of all African-American students in the country. So when you talk about the return on investment for those folks who might not have all the doors open to them, what we can do, to your point, is not only changing the tax base, but making sure that our folks, when they walk across that stage, never forget where they come from and certainly bring others along.
Isn't that also true, Dr. Allen, that the majority of African Americans to go on to get advanced degrees also come from HBCUs? I mean, if we go get masters and PhDs, 9 times out of 10, we're coming from HBCUs, aren't we?
Judges, PhDs, STEM disciplines, I could go on and on. The preponderance of HBCU graduates that go on to get professional degrees have started at an HBCU. And I think that goes to what we can do. I was telling folks this earlier, with respect to the quality of instruction. I have been in a lot of different institutions. There is nothing that we do that is less than anything you're going to find at any other similarly situated institutions. The secret sauce, right, is really about how we wrap our arms around our students and make sure that we understand what's happening throughout their life so they can get across that stage. And that is important for us because we are changing literally the trajectory of students who will literally change the trajectory for their families and their communities. It is critical. And I think now that you've seen a little bit of elevation of HBCUs in the country, it is now up to us as leaders of these institutions to make sure that the momentum continues, that we are loud voices, and we are speaking independently about what's happening in our respective communities and in HBCUs as a whole.
More MIP after this message.
Hey peeps, it's your girl, Danielle Moody, host of Woke AF Daily. Every weekday, I'm sounding the alarm and keeping you woke to all the pure evil that is going on in our country. Check me out now at patreon.com/wokeaf. Get 5 new shows every week for just $5 a month. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.
You also mentioned the physical infrastructure. Of course, I covered the protests at Howard University, which highlighted a lot of that. But what happened at Howard is happening a lot of our HBCUs, isn't it? They need upgrades and upkeep. I mean, it costs billions of dollars to maintain buildings at our HBCUs, doesn't it?
Yes, the deferred maintenance at many of our HBCUs is significant. That is not an issue that we haven't faced here at Delaware State University. I don't conflate those issues, though. What I believe that the president and the administration are doing are recognizing the historic inequities across the multiple facets that we're facing HBCUs and trying to do something about them. Having said that, I believe physical and now technological infrastructure is really at the top of that list. So the opportunity for us to take advantage of some resources that previously were not directly directed at us or at the higher proportion as we're seeing now, I believe is going to really make a substantive difference for us. And again, it's a down payment. It's not the end all be all, but you got to take the first step to take the last one. And this is a big first step. No,
you're right. That is a down. And folks, when there's a down payment, there's a lot more that comes after.
Right.
So I think that's important. Lastly, what do you think our chances are of the Senate getting this done? Build Back Better has a lot in there for a lot of people, particularly our HBCUs, as we're discussing. I mean, we know some of the obstacles we faced in the Senate. How are you feeling, Dr. Allen? Do you think the letter from the 65 HBCU presidents will have a significant impact and even move people like Manchin and Sinema?
Reverend, I tell you, I'm bullish. And I can tell you one of the reasons we normally work, as you know, through our associative groups, right? United Negro College Fund, Thurgood Marshall College Fund, and they've done great for us. But we wanted to make sure that we attached our independent names as leaders of these institutions to this letter for the very point you made, that we wanted our voices to be heard in a much different and louder way than we have previously. Having said that, I know that it won't be an easy proposition, but it is the right thing to do. And I think the moment requires more of the entire Senate to get it done. So I am hopeful, quite hopeful actually, and bullish on the prospects of all the things that are in Build Back Better for sure, but certainly with respect to HBCUs.
Dr. Tony Allen, folks, is the president of Delaware State University, where Joe Biden is from. We thank you for joining us on Make It Plain today, sir.
Thanks, Rev, and go Hornets.
All right, go Hornets indeed. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.